What is up? Episode 37 of Room 9. I sit down with my sister for the second time in Room 9 history. This episode is much better and much longer, and I'm very much looking forward to you guys listening to it, so I'm going to get right to the point and make it a nice short intro. As always, room9podcast.com is there and awaiting for your visit to fill out a contact form, check out some things that are going on, stay up to date with us, get to our Facebook page, Instagram page, all Room 9. And in this episode with Megan, I sit down with her and we kind of touch base on some trust building, touch base on the importance of accountability and relationships, and we talk a little bit about how important it is to carry your own weight before you start carrying everybody else's. And with that being said, I'm going to let you guys get right to it. If you are feeling the need to help support Room 9, there are many different ways you could do that. A, by sharing everything on your Facebook pages and trying to get other people to hear this message we're throwing out there. And you can also help in a monetary way by going to room9podcast.com/support, or just go to Room 9 Podcast website and go to the support page. You can give one time or you can give monthly. Your choice. There are links for all of that. Before you do any of that, there is a letter that I've written explaining all the Room 9 finances and everything else and how they are monitored and how I am held accountable with that. So read that. That's a letter to a donor. And that is about it. Business plan is getting finished up. I bought a new audio interface. Thank you to all the people who helped support, because that would not be possible without you guys. So hopefully all my technological issues are done with. That is the hope and the prayer and the assumption. And that is about it, guys. So this episode is absolutely amazing. If you have a loved one that is struggling with addiction, a family member, whoever that is, this is a great episode to listen to. So make sure you share this episode with as many people as you can, and I will let you guys get to it. As always, much love and thanks for everything you guys do to keep me encouraged, to keep me going, and to keep my fire a-burning. All right, take it easy.
Wait a minute. You're Meghan Cuddihy. Oh, you better believe it. How you gonna know? Think about that one. You're Meghan Cuddihy. That's the whole thing. That's what separates us. Yeah, things have changed. It's ridiculous. Because you've been listening to morons for so long. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know what's going to happen, but. Wait a minute. You're Meghan Cuddihy. Wait a minute. You're Meghan Cuddihy.
I know, I was just looking, our original episode was only like 35 minutes long with an intro. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow,
it was short.
this was a short one.
Yeah. it
What
was
is up with
definitely
that?
short.
It's like a Room
It's
9.
probably the shortest one you've done.
It's up there.
Besides, like, you did a couple by yourself that were short.
Yeah, I did one by myself that was like about that length, and then the most recent one I did by myself was like 45 minutes. So
Yeah. I got shiced it.
You did. Well, that was back, what? I think it was episode 5. So we're doing a 12:30 a.m. episode of Room 9. This is officially the latest episode to date
Yes.
that has been done. And yeah, we're waiting for my children to get in.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's getting them. So it'll be a 2 o'clock in the morning venture. And I'm sure they'll get here and pass right out. But
Probably not.
well, once you get them settled anyway.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. If you make
They
them
come
lay
like
down,
bouncing
they'll
off the
pass
walls.
right out.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm excited. I don't know, especially excited for this round.
Yes.
A long time sober me.
Yes. A lot of growth.
A lot, yeah. It'll be very exciting to have them around and not have to worry about leaving to go get drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting.
It's exciting to have you around when they're around.
That's true too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I shared with my friends today about that little joke you made about, buying them new stuffed animals,
Mm-hmm.
and how you have money to buy them new stuffed animals because you're not spending on heroin. It's funny, but very true and accurate.
It is very true. So when I first got clean, it was, I think, April 11th, actually, I started this app. and I set it up for like the timing, and I put in how much money I would spend a day at the end. I was, spending, if it was good, a rough day would be like $40. So I put in $40 a day. So from that day to now, the money I would have spent on heroin if I was spending $40 a day, just $40 a day, $27,000, 720. $27,720. Yep.
Holy cow. That's insane.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
$27,000.
That's what that's the.
If I had to spend that much money and I'm a teacher and like have a decent salary, can make by, that would severely affect my life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, when I was looking at it today, because I haven't opened up the app for a while.
Yeah.
Because I seen on Facebook somebody posted, I got 500 days. And I was like, I wonder how many days I have. And this tells you all of that down to like the minute and seconds.
That's cool. What app is it?
What is this app called? I Am Sober.
Oh, that's
really,
awesome.
Really clever name.
Yeah, but it's cool that it tracks all those things.
But yeah,
it's important.
1 year, 3 months, 6 days, 36 minutes, 49 seconds. But I was like, oh my God, $27,000.
That's insane.
I mean, obviously I couldn't keep up with that pace, hence stealing and robbing.
But you understand why most people can. If you would have progressed, you probably would have ended up spending more and more money.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Trying to figure out, and that's why it's like every moment of your life ends up being consumed by it, because you scrounge up $20, $40, you go get it, and
then you need it again.
You get high, and even before you get high, you're thinking about how you're going to get high again later on.
Yeah, because you know it's coming down.
Yep, it's just a constant consumption of your thinking at the end.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a survival mode, Even like when I was living in the Dominican for a little bit, people can't even live in the moment often because they have to think about, okay, so I just got food. How am I going to get food again? How am I going to feed my kids tomorrow? Just that survival mode of like trying to feed whatever it is to survive, what you feel like you need to survive in those moments, Obviously, people do need food and water to survive, but
yeah, that's
for a drug addict, that's how it feels.
Oh, you do need it to survive in a sense. Until you get through it and realize you don't need it to survive. But that's like Maslow's hierarchy. It's classic. You can't do anything else in your life unless you're, eating, unless you have shelter, unless you have food and water. But I guess for a drug addict, you can almost throw that in that pyramid because basically I couldn't do anything else in my existence until I at least had some drugs in my hand.
To help yourself not feel sick, yeah.
Luckily, if you get over that, you don't need that to survive.
Right. But in the moment, that's what feels like all that exists.
It feels like you need that to survive. So I can't do anything. I can't go to work until I can get drugs. I can't go grocery shopping until I can get drugs. I can't go buy diapers for my kids until I can get drugs.
Yeah. It's so intense that the brain can trick you too, almost, that you're everything with addiction, that you really believe that you can't get through that moment, as far as like being dope sick or whatever, like that you're not gonna be able to press through that, and actually you feel like if I have to continue to get sick, I'm not gonna make it. Like that's got to be such a weird.
Oh, it's crazy. In this room right here, I just remember waking up when I first came back in here from the Oxford house. I remember thinking like the last time I was in here, I would wake up in the middle every like 5-10 minutes and just be pounded with guilt and shame and fear of, oh my God, how am I going to get high in a few hours when I wake up or get out of bed? How am I going to go do that? And just every moment, it was such a prison. Every moment is just consumed by it. It's so crazy.
Takes away any joy in life because
oh my gosh,
you can't be in the moment because you have to constantly be thinking about what's going to happen next and how you're going to get it.
Yep. And like I said, even when you got it, at the end, it's just like, wow, am I going to get more? I need more.
Isn't it interesting though? Like I think even as someone who hasn't had an addiction to substances, I struggle with my train of thought even sometimes just to live in the moment. It's like the human, especially in America, I feel like we're moving so fast and always the next thing. But like this summer even, I've been thinking about all the milestones, like first being a teacher, having off for a couple weeks, like, oh, it's so exciting. And then the kids are coming and, oh, getting to spend time with my niece and nephew. And then, oh, I'm going to Africa. And I just could feel myself constantly thinking about the next thing. And I just was like, Megan, you got to be in the moment because you're just missing out on so much, you know, if you're not staying present in the moment in whatever season you're in. But it's crazy how our natural inkling as humans is to just like keep looking forward, you know, whether it's for survival or just because we don't want to be in the moment we're in right now or whatever it might be. But how unhealthy that can truly be at times.
It is. It's our biggest advantageous tool, but yet our biggest burden at the same time.
Yeah.
Ernest Becker, this author really says we are gods with anuses. And we have this unbelievable gift to look into the future and plan for it and prepare for it. And at the same time, we know we're going to die. And it just burdens us that because we have this beautiful gift to look forward and save and prepare.
Yeah.
And because I always think of like animals, lions, and when they eat, when they make a kill, they just eat until they are so stuffed they can't move.
Yeah.
They don't think about, all right, where can I put this so it stays cold so it doesn't spoil?
Right.
And I can, have some later on because, dry season's coming, so we're not going to have any food. And for us, it's like such a great, and that's obviously one of the main reasons why we've been able to just kind of grow so much and be such a successful species. But at the same time, it's really the cause of most suffering.
Right.
Is thought.
And you think too, like environment plays such a big role in that too. I read a book once about warm weathered climates compared to cold weather climates and the different mentality that you have in those cultures due to that. Like, for example, people talk about people down south. Like, I remember when our cousin Becky moved down to Florida and she was working at a McDonald's and they were like all surprised at how fast she worked, coming from up north. She moved so much quicker. And it's true, there is a different mentality even in the United States alone. And then you get it down to like cultures in the Caribbean and South America. But it's because the weather is consistently the same for them. So they don't have to, back in the day when people were first living there, they didn't have to prepare for winter. They didn't have to prepare for these things. And often, you see people in colder weather climates are more driven by time, driven by tasks, not necessarily relationships and things like that, just generalizations. And it's interesting to see how environment affects the way that we perceive time or the way that we work within it too,
It is. And it's that's been one of my favorite things about getting into like Eastern philosophy and stuff and meditation and mindfulness and just being in the present moment.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to behold in the present moment.
Right. So much to learn, so much to see. Yeah.
And that's so awesome. And you miss out on so much when you're off thinking about tomorrow.
Yep.
And there's always that like contradiction. Like, obviously, well, I have to make sure my kids got their sign for school when school starts. It's like, yeah, obviously that, but like when you're playing with your kids and hanging out with them, are you in that moment with your children or are you somewhere else?
Yeah, no, that's true. I read a book written by a Christian author, but I was talking about the story of Mary and Martha in the Bible and how you have these two sisters and one's very concerned with making sure the house is clean and making sure the food is prepared. And the other
when
one's,
Jesus comes to visit?
Yeah. The other one wants to just spend time with Jesus. And the book I read, it really had a lot of cool comparisons just to our lives and how are we the people that, someone's there to visit you or someone has a need, but you are thinking about all the tasks you have to do? Or are you someone that's just present and being with that person, And it was big for me because sometimes even if someone walks into my house, I'm like, okay, everything's where it needs to be, right? Like, and if it's not, I want to get up and fix it instead of just sitting down and listening to what they have to say or what they're there for, It's interesting how you can be so distracted by tasks, miss out.
It is. Yeah, and like doing this podcast has made me to be better at active listening. I know that's something I realized quite a few years ago that I was like, I don't listen to anybody. I just wait to respond. And now that I'm in like a coaching role with people where it's about them, and then just doing this podcast all the time with people, especially hosting, I can find myself, all right, I got to catch myself from drifting. All right, I got to make this an awesome episode. So what am I going to say next to get this conversation?
What mic drop am I going to use?
And and that's when I find when I re-listen to all of them, I find I have my worst moments as a host. And I really learn a lot from it because the best episodes, the best moments are when I forget I'm a host and I'm just letting the conversation be organic.
Yeah. And that's something I could say, like from listening to them, I feel like you have grown in your ability to just even allowing those moments of not speaking for a moment and allow the conversation to just sit for a second, you know, to see where it's going to go next. It's definitely a skill that has to be, you know,
developed.
Yeah, exactly. Developed for sure.
I mean, that's one thing. The original co-host with me, I think he was just in the thought track of, all right, I can just show up, sit down, and do whatever, and not have to work on anything outside of here, and not have to pay attention. And it was just at the end of, you know, our time together doing this, it was just really sloppy. And I did an episode with him that I never posted, and I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna let him go. And he literally just went for 18 minutes. Yeah, just non-rambling. I was like, oh my gosh. But that was kind of after we had our little, you know, not that we're
conversation.
I mean, we're close still again, and you know, there's no hard feelings that I know of anyway between us. But we had a little
for this. Yeah,
we had a little spat at one moment because I was putting all this work in, and he really wasn't. And you know, he wanted to say, you know, well, you don't include me in it, so. When I made that change, he still didn't put any work in, so it's kind of an excuse. But I remember we had that little spat, and I was like, dude, it's an art form. Like, you have to get better at it.
Right.
And one of the biggest things is listening and actively and letting people talk and letting conversations go where it is. And that's a huge part of anybody's life, anybody's relationships, especially when you're somebody recovering from substance use. And you're trying to talk with loved ones, spouses, whoever it may be. Yeah. There has to be this point of like pure listening and understanding somebody.
For sure. Like common goals, common ground rules kind of set between you and that person to ensure success. Like if you're not walking in the same direction, it's very difficult when you're trying to like complete a task. You know, if you don't have the same, obviously people can have different vision and, you know, collaborate and create great things. But in relationships, you know, just at least having a mutual understanding of what the roles are and what the expectations are, which as humans, we don't want that. We want to just do what we want all the time. But it's so healthy to have those things kind of laid out.
No, it is. Even in the last episode, we talked about the therapist I did an episode with, Brittany. She's big on working with couples on communicating. So we had a spat about that on the episode, and it's amazing how like sometimes people can be communicating with each other and it turns into, I should say, not communicating very well with each other. They end up like almost arguing but meaning the same thing when they finally get down to it. Yeah. And they mean the same exact thing.
They want the same goal. They're just saying it in a different way.
They're just, using different language. And I remember bringing up the point, like, it's so amazing how powerful the technological tool of language is, but yet at the same time is so limited.
Yeah. It can be disheartening at times.
Oh my gosh. And it's really, I mean, you find that's usually the main issue in any relationship when it comes down to it, is there's no communication going on. Right. And I was just talking with this guy that I'm starting to coach, and our conversation was really kind of about communicate, because he went on about how he gets defensive when he gets like kind of questioned, or somebody's not really sure if what he's saying is true or where he's going is where he's really going. And I really had that moment to share with him how you can't get offensive. Yeah. Especially if you're doing what you're saying you're doing. Right. You can't get offensive, and you gotta allow them that space. And at the same time, and prove it though. I mean, here you go. Because I've had not so many, but I mean, there was breakdowns with Christine and I when I was doing that designated driver's job. Yeah. And I didn't know I was on the schedule. Randomly, they just kind of threw me on there a few days before. I didn't look at it for a few days, and next thing I know, I got a text. Oh, are you ready to go whenever we get a call? I'm like, oh shit, I must be working. This was at like 11. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then I got a call to leave at like 2 a.m. and Christine saw that I was gone. She's like, are you really gone right now? And I was like, yeah, sorry, I got a call. And she said something about it being shady. And all I could do was, here's a number for the dispatcher. I had them, send me pictures of my locations, my arrival times of pickups and drop-offs and everything else. And I mean, it's all you can do. But I think with situations like that, instead of me getting defensive, it improved it. And that was like a big trust bonus. Like, all right, okay, he was telling the truth. Okay. Right. As opposed to me being like, you don't trust me.
Right, because that would have just created more, like for her, more questions and more insecurities in that
Yeah.
situation of just like, not that it's an insecurity, but you know what I'm saying? Like she would have been questioning it more like, why are you getting upset about this? Why are you getting defensive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I really tried to share with the dude is allow that to happen, because that, if you can be like, no, look at here's my phone. This is where it was.
Right.
This is who I'm texting. Here's a number to where I was going. Or
Yeah.
when you can do stuff like that, the trust builds itself after you're following through and showing and proving that what
Right.
you're saying and doing is what you're saying and doing.
Right. The questions will become few and far between as you grow in that. Yeah, that's cool.
Which I know Dad is, our father is probably thankful that I'm done with the designated driver's job, because he couldn't stand me leaving.
Yeah, I'm sure that drove him nuts.
And that was kind of an adjustment. I think they're still adjusting, but because I've been at the Oxford house, so I've had nobody asking me, where are you going? What's
Mhm.
going on? And I could just come and go as I please.
Right.
And so I think that's been adjustment for everybody, because I'm just kind of, all right, in and out, going,
Right.
moving. Hopefully that's slowing down now with the drop out of the pizzeria and the designated driver's job, but
Right.
we'll see.
I mean, it's got to be interesting for them too, you know, as far as you coming back into the house. And I mean, just so much has changed since last time you were here, you know, when you
Oh
were
my gosh,
using,
yeah.
obviously, but also them, you know, and something I did say to Mom at one point, and it wasn't an in-depth conversation we had, but just when she told me you're moving back at first, and I said, you're allowed to have boundaries, you know, you're allowed to ask him for certain things, and like, it's okay to do that,
Mhm.
you know, but it's so hard. We talk about this all the time about setting boundaries or doing these things, and it's easy when you're out of the house. But when you're back in and it's time to really like, okay, you know, like if you are going a lot, to just ask like, hey, where are you going? Like, it's okay for them to ask you that. But it might feel, even for you, it might feel demeaning in the moment, or like they're treating me like I'm a child, or you know what I mean? It's such a weird balance. Like learning these things and then actually applying them are two different things. That's for sure.
Two very different
Yeah.
things, yeah. And that's why
On both sides.
even when we went and spoke at that Save the Michaels family group, you, me, and Mom, and I remember saying a couple times, like, I know this is so much easier said than done, but
Right.
the only way you get to it is by doing it
Yeah.
and working on it and trial and error. You know, somebody
Right.
might get upset and defensive one moment, but whatever, you just recover from that and
Right.
you keep going forward and communicating
Yes, you have to keep communicating
with your loved one, because any kind of shutting down is not going to do any good.
Right.
Not going to do any good. And that's huge. Yeah. So it's definitely been a big adjustment. But I mean, I took a bunch of drug tests, P tests from the Oxford house and gave them to Mom,
Yeah.
which
She
I've done
shared
that with
me.
Christine. Yeah. I was like, here, and this is something, anytime, whatever.
Right.
If you're paranoid, whoop one of them out,
Yep.
you know, randomly. It doesn't matter. Obviously, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If it does matter, then, well, that's a good thing they're doing it.
Yeah. And that is something too I wanted to even share with Mom, because she did tell me about the drug test, and I can, just knowing her personality, I know she would struggle even if she was paranoid to ask you to do that. And I was thinking to her, like, if you want to just like, because sometimes it's easy too to, instead of being reactive, to be proactive in situations, especially with recovery, I feel like is a healthier option, obviously. And so like, even just saying like, hey, I want you to take these once a month. You know, on this day, you're going to take it. And, or, you know, I can just give it to you a random time, but once a month, we're going to do it. And it's not because I'm not trusting you in that moment. It's just because this is what I want to do. This is part of what I want, you know, and just kind of, and I think that's where that front work with boundaries, especially if you're going to be living in close proximity with someone who has struggled with addictions, it's so important to set the groundwork. Because when you're reactive, there's so much high emotions. And there are times, obviously, where all you can do is react in some moments and situations. But to kind of know what are your things and think about them. What are these things, these lines that you don't want crossed? Or what are the proactive things you want to set up? And following through with that it's critical.
It is, yeah, because once you kind of sway from that, it throws you completely off balance. I mean, I think maybe she should have a time in her own head when she wants to do it.
Right.
As opposed, because it's so easy. You say, all right, the first of every month, I'm going to give you a drug test.
Right. Then you could cheat the system.
It's very easy to cheat the system, maybe with the exception of cannabis.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, I could smoke once or twice
Right.
in the beginning of the month, and not very much will probably cheat the tests on the first of the month after,
Right.
So yeah, I think random test. I mean,
but even if she just said in her head, like, I'm gonna give you one of these at some point every month. Like, I'm not gonna. I'm just so it's like that doesn't mean that I'm giving it to you because I think, oh, you're using, but just because I'm just doing this as this is what the protocol that I want to follow is, or
Well, this was my motto always in Oxford House. Even if I do think you're using and you're not, it still shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Because if you're not, then
Take it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you almost always knew. I mean, there was never once where a guy at the Oxford House got pissed off he had to take a drug test and he wasn't dirty.
yeah.
That's never happened.
Yeah.
Not once has somebody got pissed off and said, I don't want to take one, and they take one and they pass.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way.
Right.
There's one
If
guy.
there's resistance, then there's probably something
Yeah,
happening.
of course. Why else would you resist?
Right.
If you're clean, naturally you're going to be like, you want to prove that person wrong. Well,
Right.
Hell yeah, I'll take a piss test
Yeah, I'm
right
gonna
now.
pee right now all over
I'll
that.
pee right in you.
Ew, you're disgusting. Something's wrong with you.
we had one guy that first took forever, so we told him he had to take a drug test. I knew the night before he was either, I wasn't 100% sure. He was either like took way too much of his sleep meds or he was high.
Yeah.
Which turned out he was high. But trying to get him to take a drug test, first he pulls out his outpatient sheet from Horizon. No, look, I just took one. As if that means anything.
Right.
But it had stuff crossed off. So it had sent to the lab, checked in, and supervised was no. It said no, not supervised. And that was crossed off. And then he rewrote it in instant, yes, supervised, yes.
Like you wouldn't know.
And he goes to the same exact outpatient I go to, Union Lawson Horizon Health. And I'm just laughing because I'm like, first of all, I've gone here. This would never happen.
Right.
This would never happen. They would not do that. If they did screw up, they would write in a completely different sheet.
Right. They would fill out a new sheet. Yeah.
Because they have tons of them and they would be worried
know
about
how
something
people
like this
work.
would happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, that's wrong. And it was just so funny. And it had, the things filled in. Oh, yeah, he passed everything. Finally, we get him to take a test. He failed for 3 things. After this was like 6 hours of, all right, dude, you have to be able to pee by now. Come on. So finally,
Right.
we're like, you have a half hour to pee. If not, that's a fail.
Yeah.
Finally, he took a piss test, failed at 3 things he failed in. And it still was like, there's no way, man. There's just no way.
It's so interesting how, I mean, I teach high school students. And so 2 girls, they are sitting next to each other. I'm going around to collect their tests. The one girl had finished, I guess, a few minutes before. And the girl sitting next to her is still filling out her tests and has the girl who's sitting next to her, she has her paper in front of her. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she goes, no, I'm not cheating. I'm I'm done. I was just looking to see, what she put on there. And I said, you're kidding, right? Like, you're going to really try to tell me right now you're not cheating?
No,
I said,
miss,
okay.
I swear.
I said, I'm really not getting into it. And they're like, miss, you're crazy. Like, we're not cheating. And these girls are very different performance levels. Okay. I'm like,
so they're not both intelligent.
No.
Like, okay.
No, one is definitely significantly smarter than the other. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll grade the test and I will definitely be able to tell if you cheated or not. First of all, the girl who had both papers in front of her, the one who was definitely copying off of the other, literally like has questions that she had marked a certain way crossed off because she used pen, so she couldn't erase it. And then circles the same exact answers. Every one that the one girl got wrong, she got wrong. Like, it was so evident that they cheated. You could see that she crossed off and changed things. Like, it was just ridiculous. And these girls were going to fight me to the death that they weren't cheating. I was like, I caught you with her paper in front of you. Like, what? And it just it blows my mind to the point where I think they fully convinced themselves that they weren't cheating, that did not happen. That was not what was going on. That was, maybe it looked like it, and it was, it's just so crazy how that's one thing that drives me nuts. If you get caught, and I always say this to my students, if you get caught doing something, please just be honest about it. Like, just be honest.
Oh my God. It's tough because there's always that voice in your head saying you might get away with it if
Right.
you just keep lying.
Right.
Somebody might actually believe you.
It is interesting.
There's just always that voice because I say the same thing. Like, you were going to piss dirty.
Right.
When
why
you
not
took
have
this
just done it
drug
6 hours
test,
ago and been done with it?
Well, why not just tell us?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm dirty. I'm not going to pass. There's no point.
Yeah.
I'll start getting my stuff together. Like,
Right.
why?
You
Why
knew
drag
the
it
outcome
out?
was going to be the same. Yeah.
Because there's always that voice in your head.
Maybe I won't.
Maybe there's something wrong with this test and
Maybe
it
it
won't read
magically
it.
left my system.
Yeah, or maybe whatever it is,
Yeah.
you convince yourself maybe somebody will believe this lie
Yeah.
and I'll get away with it and I'll be okay.
Hmm.
And I mean, I remember doing that. Some of the stuff I say I was very good at manipulating and lying. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of addicts always say that, but a lot of them are full of crap
Yeah.
because they're just dumb. But I was good at it for a time. But there's a point where you can't be, and that was
Right.
some
At
of
the
the
end,
stuff
you were
I was
scrambling,
doing.
man.
Oh
You were
my gosh.
scrambling. When you told me you used that money to pay off someone you bought weed from 2 years ago or something, I was like, what are you talking about? Who's out here threatening you for some weed money right now? Like, what?
Oh my gosh, it
How
is.
is this happening? And I was just like, this is not, I don't believe you. And you just kept trying to lie. And I was like, I don't believe you. You're lying. You're using a gun. And you just kept making up these things. I was like, I don't believe you.
No, what happened was a hurricane came and it just wiped everything out. And
I mean, you were giving me names of people that I knew that you were saying I should just make the story sound. You know that person that you used to work with at that place? Yeah, I bought some weed off of him. What?
that one guy that was there that one time.
It's literally what it
Oh
was
my
like.
gosh.
I don't, but it's funny.
It's ridiculous.
But maybe in a different time and place, I would have believed you. You know, it's interesting how it makes sense
Oh yeah.
why you thought you could pull things like that over me, because you did for a long time. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Well, and then you want it. You want it to work so
Yeah,
bad.
you want to believe.
A lot of it is I want
That
to
is
get away
true.
with it. The other part of it is I'm sick of hurting people, but I can't stop doing what I'm
Right.
doing. I mean, there's just so many things that go with it.
And for
It's
the family
insane.
member, you know, there's this deep desire that I
To
wanted to
want.
believe you.
Yeah.
I wanted to believe that this was done. Even the way you got clean. You know, I don't think there are many people, I don't think there's anyone probably that effectively has gotten clean and stayed clean the way you did it, as far as you weren't working on anything. You just
Mhm.
were, okay, I'm just going to stop, but I'm going to still drink and I'm going to still smoke pot and I'm going to still, you know, be in the same surroundings essentially.
Not
Not
work
change
on
anything, not
not
work on
talk
myself.
about any
Yeah.
of the shame and yeah.
But I just wanted to believe, no, my brother's strong enough. He can do it.
Mhm.
He's got this. He'll be the one to do it, you know, because you just want to believe that this is done, that this isn't a part of your life anymore.
Mm-hmm. That it's moved on.
Right.
And yet people want to believe that as much as the person doing it does.
Yeah.
I mean, even Christine was telling me this blowout she just had with her dad. She said, and I mean, I think I avoided this conversation with him for 6 years just because I knew what the result of it was
Right.
going to be.
Right.
It was going to be this blowout
Mm-hmm.
of me calling him out on things that he's done wrong.
Right.
Him blowing out, not admitting to it, being defensive,
Right.
and basically, I mean, she's shutting him out of her life for now.
Yeah.
We know things so often. We know them, but we just don't want to face them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just find ways around it.
Right.
All right, I'm not going to even bring it up. If I don't talk about it, it won't be there. And
Right.
it's so funny because I talked about this in my presentation that you missed.
Wow.
I talked about this in my presentation because it's such a beautiful thing, and it's something you constantly have to work on, because this was the one thing that in jail, I was like, I'm so scared of how powerful the mind is.
Mm.
And it can make you believe things and do things that you truly wholeheartedly believe and think you believe this,
Right.
but you really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I talked about in this presentation was being precise in your speech. And basically what he meant by it was that any little thing that bothers you, you have to name it and talk about it. You have to give it a name and you have to talk about it. Because if you don't, it'll only get bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and it stems into other issues.
Right.
And that issue masks itself underneath another issue. And then that issue masks itself under another issue.
It just
And
keeps
then eventually
building.
you're just on a gigantic ass pile of issues.
Yeah.
And it's just so important to find something and talk about it when
Mhm.
it bothers you. Even if I got defensive over something and me getting defensive was wrong, the fact that you bring it up and you talk about it stops it.
Yep.
Because now you see it. There it is. Now I see it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you hit on, you know, we've been talking a lot about communication. And I think the other thing that goes with that that's necessary is community. Like if you don't have people to communicate with or to discuss these things with, even when you're talking about the mind being so powerful and you can perceive situations a certain way that might in fact not be reality, you know, if you don't have people around you to talk things through with, to communicate with and kind of get these other perspectives and see these situations from different points of view, you could make yourself believe anything,
Mhm.
and you see that. And that's something that I get fearful of too. Like I have been in conversations with people and I'm like, that is not what happened. That is not what was said, and it's always great for me when I have a third party that was there that can either,
That's huge.
bring truth to it. Because it's very difficult to talk to someone who's convinced of something because of either past
impossible.
hurts. Exactly. And those are things that they need to see on their own. And I think the biggest thing is trying not to get to that point in our lives, where we're so fixated on something and maybe we didn't. I think about people with certain hurts or perceptions. Like what if even like racism and stuff like this, like what if someone, when they first had that thought, sat down with a few people with different perspectives and talked about it, and just got it out there and like could see the light or the truth in it or whatever it is, and really see the reality of it instead of allowing the perceptions to kind of build and build and build and build and build until now you've created a whole worldview that you look at that can be misleading
It's
and
skewed,
not
so
exactly
skewed.
so skewed. Exactly.
And we all are guilty of it
Mhm.
because we get so sucked into subjectivity as opposed to looking at things objectively.
Yeah.
And it's so
100%,
hard.
yeah.
If we all looked at things objectively, it's amazing like the issues that would be solved.
Mm-hmm.
Because and when you look at things objectively, you get to put yourself in everybody's position.
Right.
But it
No,
was so
that's
funny.
true.
I mean this blowout recently that I had with my good buddy that he was been over to the house and like he was just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Like when he was flipping out at me and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right.
And like when he spazzed out, I was laughing, but it was more of just a dumbfounded laughter because I'm like, I have no idea.
Right.
Like what
What do
world
want
are
me
you
to say
living
to
in?
this? Yeah.
What world are you living in? You just made a bunch of shit up that I have no idea.
Right. And how do
You
you
know.
respond to that?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can't. Well, how do you convince that person otherwise?
I mean, I remember having a conversation with your ex-wife that it was through texting, which is never good anyways.
No.
But there were things that she was saying about me that I was like, that is not true. Like that did not happen. And luckily for me, I had saved messages. Like there were messages on my phone still because I
Mhm.
never delete my text messages that I was like literally screenshotting and sending to her, like, and trying to be as gentle as possible. Like this is what was actually said in that conversation. Like maybe I'm misreading that. Like, can you explain to me like how you interpreted what I said to be that? And she just wouldn't even acknowledge them. I'm sending her these screenshots of things and she just wouldn't acknowledge them because she was just so stuck on the fact that I was against her or I was trying to plot against her and,
Mhm.
all these things that were not accurate. And it was affecting my relationship with Jason and Kayla, like not being able to talk to them while I was away and just crazy things. But I remember just being like, at the end of it all, I can't control that. These are things I can't control.
Mhm.
I just did the best I could to show her truth in that, and she can't see it. And that is what it is. I can't continue to carry a burden for something I can't fix.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
And she's a special kind of crazy.
Difficult. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with her.
Yeah. We don't need to even.
I mean,
begin.
it's
But yeah.
insane. I mean, but she's a great example of somebody who's been so consumed by hate and anger and resentment and
I knew too the second that she left Buffalo that distance would never benefit my relationship with her at all. Not that I wanted her to stay here or anything, but
but
I knew that as soon as there was distance between us, that her brain would begin to wheel up things that I was against her or that I was, what I mean, that I was plotting something or whatever it is. And that's what it did end up doing after, 6-7 months of her being away. And I mean, it was hard for me because I did really love her and genuinely care about her.
Mhm.
And I considered her to be my sister. And so that was difficult. I even read a journal. I was cleaning out stuff today and I read
About
a
it?
journal entry about it where I just said that I felt so hurt by the loss of even her,
Mhm.
and that there was nothing I could do to fix it because she had a perception of me in her head. And all I could do from that point forward is try to just be who I was in any interaction I had with her, as minimal as they were. And that's it. But not trying to convince her to like see me in a better light, but just to be myself, that
Mhm.
I wasn't going to allow that to manipulate me to being someone that I'm not, but it's hard. It's hard not to play that game.
Yeah, then that's just ego,
Into-
really, is what
yeah.
it is. Because you're like, I want this person to see I'm not what they're
Right.
making me out to be,
Right.
and that's you have that with
It's my
so many
Enneagram
people.
type.
Yeah, I mean, really, and it's crazy. I mean, she's a perfect example of how powerful the mind can be, and you can manipulate yourself. And now she was able to go into an environment where she could create whatever she wanted to, whatever
Yeah.
image of all of us up here she could create when after we got divorced.
Mhm.
And that's what she's still to this day, over
Right.
6 years later, she's still playing that.
Yeah.
That I'm the biggest piece of shit, that
Yeah.
she hates me, that I cheated on her, that this is all my fault. And like she plays this card to the death, to the fullest down there, that
Yeah.
we're all evil, manipulative scumbag liars up here.
Yeah.
When in reality, like there's nothing. I try, how many emails I've sent to her trying to remind her. Do you remember like when our kids would only want me to get them in and out of the crib? Do you remember who was changing the diapers do you remember who was taking care of the kids all the time?
Right.
Who loved doing it? Do you remember any of these things?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, again, she never responds.
Right.
She just ignores them. And it's so funny. And then, all she cares about is money, but she's a perfect example of somebody who has shaped her own reality to what she's wanted to be. And she is fully immersed in it and fully believes every little bit of it. And there's no telling her otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to what we were talking about with like community, communication, accountability. Like if you don't have accountability in your life of people who have experienced those things alongside of you to speak truth into that. I know the friends I can go to and I can say, oh my gosh, and I can go bash someone and they're going to 100% support me and they're never going to say a bad thing about me. And I know the friends that if I really want truth from and I want them to point out like, hey, Megan, well, also like you probably shouldn't have said this that way. I know who they are. And I know when I'm going to the one side because I'm like, oh, I just want to be affirmed and validated. And then the times where I'm like, no, I need to kind of be put in my place and I want to make sure I'm actually being fair in this situation, that I'm being kind, that I'm being fair, and that I'm not just looking at this from my perspective or victimizing myself or, whatever it is. I think it's all important that we have people in our lives that can really kind of press their thumb on those parts of our lives.
That is huge.
Yeah.
Because as much as I've worked on many, many years of my life, being objective and being a realist, there's times like that's another thing. Like I swear up and down, how much, leaving the Oxford house and like, it was terrible and it was the worst place ever. But I was forced to work on so many things, patience, assertiveness. And I mean, another one was being objective. And like, I remember this one guy, I was like, am I picking on him? Because I feel like I'm telling him all the time what he's doing wrong.
Right. And
I had to constantly check myself. And my line was, the guy I was closest to was Andre. My line was, if Andre did this, would I be annoyed and upset? That's how I would check myself.
Yeah.
But there's just people who are doing stupid things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you keep telling them, it's like, am I picking on this person? Or is this just for real? And I mean, just some people are just like, oh my gosh, they don't learn.
Yeah. And
yet you do. And you have to learn to have those friends that you can go to. That'd be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done it this way.
Right.
Because that's how you learn.
Yes.
The issue is, as I'm finding out more and more, and it's not even just in recovery, it's just in general, is people don't want to learn or change.
Yeah.
And that is huge, because that's very hard work.
It is.
Nobody likes doing it.
And I think there's something too within yourself too, realizing, setting boundaries for yourself, not for that person, but for yourself. Like if I walk in the house and this person starts going on this trail of conversation, I know that's going to make me do this. So I need to remove myself from that situation. You know what I mean? Like figuring out what those things are, because ultimately, like I always say, you can't like control everything that happens in your life, but you can control how you respond and how you react to it. And so a lot of times I'll catch myself doing things that are out of character. And I can easily say like, oh, it's because this person did this, or they're doing that, or they're annoying me in this way, or they did this to hurt me or whatever. But I think that's where it's like for myself, I have to reflect on knowing myself and what makes me tick and what makes me get to these points of frustration or doing things like unhealthy behaviors, and kind of like setting that boundary for myself. Like, okay, I need to be reflecting on myself and what's going on, and making sure that I am, once again, being proactive and handling those situations so I don't get to these points of frustration. But more than that I don't get to a point where I act in a way that I don't want to act.
It's out of character.
Exactly.
Or that's wrong.
Like staying, and I think that's a process. Like I'm 28 years old and I have a lot of life ahead of me potentially, but
Knock
that
on
just
wood.
yeah, I mean, whatever, it is what it is. But this refining process of like, okay, I want to get better each and every day, at being more true to who I am and being willing to change, obviously, and grow in different areas, but just not allowing situations in my environment to make me respond or be different than what I really think is true to who I am in my core. It's such a hard thing, though. And I see women double my age still struggling with that.
My gosh.
I mean,
There's
women
so
and
many.
men. But I think it's part of life, that refining process of like growing in that. And I think sometimes society says, no, as you get older, you should just care less and less. But I kind of want to fight against that, I guess, and want to be really aware.
It depends what you mean by care less and less.
Yeah, I guess
'Cause there's that
care
good-
less and less what people. I
Yeah.
don't want the approval of people. Yes, of course. But I also want to be kind.
Yeah, there's people like one of the saddest things our father ever said to me was, and I'll never forget, and this was even before my addiction and everything, it was, I'm done learning.
I remember that
Yeah.
conversation.
I'm done learning. And to me, I was like, that's so sad. What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, that sucks that you're done learning and done changing.
But it's interesting because you could ask him in the next question, are you really happy with your life right now? And his answer, if he's being honest, would be no.
absolutely not. No, he's miserable. Yeah. And I think that to me, I was like, I never want to be that.
Right.
That's my goal as I get older, is just to always keep learning and never be that stubborn old human being who's like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to learn anything new.
Because unfortunately, it's not like if you decide, okay, I'm not going to learn or grow anymore, you're going to just stop and stay where you're at. You're going to go backwards. That's what's happening.
Yeah, life works out the way as in if you stop paying attention, it's just going to build up.
Yeah.
The pain, the misery, the suffering is just going to keep building.
Yeah. And that's something that I feel like breaks my heart the most about, even Dad saying that, is that I hate to see the joy that he once had begin to, stifle.
Fade, yeah.
Or those characteristics. And I think that is also what addiction does to you over time too, as far as Dad's drinking, and that it will consistently weigh on you more and more and more. And even if you think you've hit rock bottom, if you're not actively trying to get help or be better, you will go deeper.
And and I see him, like, I see him struggle so much as too with, like, I know he wants that relationship we both have with Mom. But that's the biggest difference, is our conversations with Mom are about growing.
Yeah.
And strengthening ourselves and learning in life. And when you don't want any of that, you can only talk about one thing, and that's what's going on in your life. What are you doing as far as like jobs and things for fun, or you talk about past events.
Yeah.
And then other than that, there's really not much conversation,
Right.
unless it involves introspection, learning,
Yeah.
and changing.
And it's so interesting too, because there'll be moments of, I've been really trying to be more patient and kind and loving, because I realized that I was able to be more patient and kind and loving with you than I am with him. And that's probably because since a young girl, I've been seeing the effects of alcohol in his life, but just like really trying to find even just a moment in time that is not affected by alcohol. And maybe it is for him, but in that moment I'm perceiving it as like, okay, we're just, we went out to eat the one day and we went to Apollo, so he couldn't drink there, and he was at a pretty good place before we went, and just to sit and have conversation with him where there wasn't a glass of wine in his hand. Like, it was just important to me. And I just kind of want to hold on to those little things so that I can be more patient in the moments where he's acting a little ridiculous, or, he's drunk and I can't even have a conversation with him.
That's the worst. That I didn't understand even before I stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't understand why people get this drunk.
Right.
Like, it's
But
foolish.
when you think that he's been doing this for years and years and years and years, and it just is like, it's almost like when you talk about like needing more heroin, when you need it more to get high, he probably just feels like, I need more. And he's not even realizing that he's so drunk.
Yeah.
Because his body's telling him, no, you need more. You need more. It's so difficult, and it's just so socially acceptable drinking. And that's the hardest thing. I mean, with his buddies, it's cool that he gets, that he drinks so much.
Yeah. Oh, Jimmy, you were so messed up the other night.
Yeah. Like it's celebrated.
We had to carry you out to the car.
Yeah. And it's hard for me even not to fall into those conversations when they're happening, because it just seems like, okay, no, this is socially acceptable. This is fine. But really, it's like we're joking about something that for much of my childhood, scarred me in a lot of ways. It really gave me a distrust towards men specifically in my life, and a lot of like self-worth issues of just feeling like I wasn't worth it for him to stop. And I know now that thinking, I've had to cut that off, like through learning about addiction with you. It's really helped me be like, okay, this is not just like, I didn't start the addiction. I'm not going to take the blame for his drinking. I also don't control the outcome of him deciding to stop or not. But I remember being a little girl and writing these letters and thinking, okay, this one, I'm going to give him this letter, and he's going to be his heart's going to be so moved that his little girl wrote this letter and wants him to stop drinking because she loves him so much, and he'll stop. And it just, obviously that was always, might maybe stop for a day or 2 days or pretended to stop for a month, or whatever.
Hide it.
But it always ended with the same disappointment. I think it is hard as humans for us to communicate, even what you're saying with Christine and her dad. It's so hard to be vulnerable because it could lead to such deep disappointment.
It is. Yeah. And like even Christine said, like, I knew this was going to be it.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be his
The
response.
whole time.
Somebody
Right.
told me, his girlfriend, wife, whatever she is, her stepmom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She even said, if you have him choose between you or your ex-husband, he's going to choose him. Just so you know, I'm sorry, but he's going to.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's basically what happened. And yeah, and I think so many people need to hear what you just said too, Megs, because there's so many people out there who are in relationships, whether it's their parents, their children, their spouses, that are like, why can't you stop? If you loved me, you would stop doing this.
Right.
And it's just, I think it's so awesome you said that, because that's so difficult, because then you do feel like, am I not good enough for them to stop? Do
Right.
they not love me enough?
Yeah.
Am I not lovable enough?
Right.
And that's super important, because that's not it. And I tell people all the time that just that scene of walking down to Christine's back to the house to take stuff, crying because I didn't want to do it. I knew
Right.
how much this was going to hurt her.
Right.
That I was going back in the house and taking stuff to get money for drugs. And it's just crazy.
Right.
It's so like the addict mind is so crazy.
Yeah. I read this just to kind of, one of the last things I want to say. I mean, I don't know how we doing on time.
Okay, it's not even 1:30 yet.
Oh, okay, perfect. I read this like analogy thing once, and it was like this guy was getting ready for a journey, and like God came to him and gave him 3 little rocks that he said, I want you to take these to the top of the mountain. He lived in a small town at the bottom of the mountain, and he said, I just want you to take these 3 stones, these little stones. I want you to carry them up to the top of the mountain. And so he said, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can handle that. So he had like a little wagon that he was, kind of hooked up around his back, and was going to drag these little stones and whatever other little belongings he had. And right before he left the town, a friend came over and said, hey, where are you going? Like, are you going on a trip? And he said, oh yeah, I'm going to the top of the mountain. And so the person said, okay, well, do you mind just like taking these three large stones I have? I know you have those little ones, but I have these big kind of rocks, I guess they'd be called. Do you mind just taking them for me? Because I don't think I'd be able to carry them myself. Like, do you mind taking them? And he says, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Just put it in the wagon. So the wagon, of course, gets heavier, and he's pulling, and he gets about halfway up, and he's getting kind of tired. So he stops for a break, and this man kind of walks out of the woods and says, oh my gosh, where are you going? And he says, I'm going to the top of the mountain. And the guy says, oh, I just have one boulder that there's no way I'm going to be able to get it up there, but I need to get it up there. Can I put it in the wagon for you? And so he puts it in the wagon, and the guy gets ready to keep going, and he gets to a point where he's got blisters on his feet. He can't pull it anymore. He's exhausted. He throws the wagon down, and he says, like, God, I just don't understand. Like, I can't, there's no way I can do this. This is too much for me to do. I can't do this. And then he says to him, like, I never intended for you to carry all of this. I gave you those 3 little stones, and that's what you need to carry up to the top of the mountain. And you've started taking on all this other stuff for people, and now you can't do the task that I've given you. And it hit me so hard when I read it, because I've always struggled with taking on the burdens of other people. Even with you, instantly that night I was crushed. I felt like I was in jail that night. Like, and I wasn't, but I was just crushed. And I came over here to try to comfort Mom, and Mom couldn't be consoled. And I just felt like I don't know what to do right now. I felt so out of control, and I couldn't take her burden. I couldn't take your burden. And I just remember feeling completely depleted of any energy I had, any love, joy, anything that I had that is good. I felt like it was just gone. I just couldn't give anything. And I think so many times in life, and even when we're dealing with others who are going through things, we want to carry those burdens. We want to take those stones. And of course, there's community, and we should be helping each other and loving each other, but also making sure that we are able to do the task that we have been given. If I can't be my best in the things that I need to do, that are valuable work, because I'm taking on everyone's emotions and everyone's feelings, then I'm not effective. And I can't help that person when I really need to help that person, And so I think there's such a good balance that needs to occur between this, we're fighting together, we're a community, but also making sure that you are doing what you need to do for yourself, in some sense being selfish and taking care of those things that you need to take care of. And I think it's it's hard. I remember talking at Save the Michaels about like community. We need community. You need to hear the stories of others, and you do, and you need to encourage other people. But that doesn't mean you just take on the weight of everyone's problems, you know? And I think that is very difficult for families specifically who are supporting addicts and they want to control. And even like with dad, like I wanted to control. I want to make him stop. I want him to get better. I want to fix this for him. And we can't, you know? And so just this constant idea of really those 3 little stones. What are those 3 little stones that you have before you that you need to carry? And what are the things you don't, you know, and just kind of like finding that balance.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
We love taking on other people's stuff. It brings us self-importance. It brings us,
Right.
you know, all these things. And it is like a great thing to help people. It's a great thing. But it goes back to, and I talked about this with that therapist, Brittany, in this last episode, how if you don't love yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't
Help anyone.
You can't help anybody.
No.
You'll have little brief moments of helping people, because I've looked in my past, my whole life, I've wanted to help people,
Mm-hmm.
and I have, but I haven't been able to do that in a complete and fulfilling way
Right.
up until recently. Now where I feel like I'm on that journey of helping people
Effectively.
and
Yeah.
effectively, and it's where it's fulfilling, and I feel like, all right, I'm taking my 3 little stones up.
Yeah.
And like you said, yeah, we are supposed to help people, and you help people push that wagon, their wagon up.
Right.
You don't carry it up for them.
Right.
You help them push that wagon up.
That's key too. Yeah.
And I think
100%.
that's the big difference. I'm making sure my wagon gets up there with my stones, but if you need help and I can help you along the way, I will help you push
Right.
or pull, whatever
Yeah. I
you're
will do
doing.
everything I can to help you. Yeah. No, that's cool.
But when it comes down to it, my stones are getting up there.
Yeah. Like I have to do what has been given to
Mhm.
me and do it well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's a good little story analogy there.
Mm-hmm.
A fable, whatever they are.
Yeah. I guess it is more like a fable.
But yeah, that's awesome. How long we got? We got, what, 45 minutes till the kids get in?
Yeah. It's exciting.
Well, we'll leave in, what, 20 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I know. Well, this was a great episode.
Yes.
A midnight episode of Room 9.
A little midnight episode. I think you got to get a special like jazzy music
For it,
intro
yeah.
for this one.
The night.
The
nighttime.
the night of Room 9.
Room 9. The night show.
Kind of sounds bad, like Room 9 night show. Sounds like we're going to some
What
cheap
are we doing
motel
in
or
this
something.
room?
What's happening here? Okay.
All right, sis. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank
I
you
think
for
you
having me.
had some awesome points.
Thank you.
And this will be late 30s episode anyway.
Nice.
And last time we did one was about 30 episodes ago. That was
That's
episode
crazy.
5. This episode 36 was the last one I put out. So,
A lot of good things in between.
oh yeah, a lot of equipment upgrades. Thank you
Yes.
to everybody who supports and helps.
Yes, keep
That's
doing
huge. Next thing is an audio interface. Although it lasted, it didn't stop, it didn't screw up. We'll see how the sound came out.
it. Awesome.
We shall see. But all right, Mix, I love you.
Love you too.
All right, peace out, y'all.
Peace.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. As I said in the beginning, this was a great episode. I loved it. It was a late night episode that we did waiting for my kids to get into town, and it came out really well. You can kind of hear the tiredness in my voice throughout it, but it just was awesome to sit down and hit record with my sister and have this conversation. And okay, well, that is about it for this week. As always, room9podcast.com. Check us out, what's going on there, fill out a contact form, help us out in any way you can by sharing everything on your social media platforms or helping out monetarily with the support page on our Room 9 website. Other than that, you guys have a great week, and as always, I will be talking to you next Monday. Later.